Good evening, everybody. I'm Gene Bailey. You are watching Flashpoint. Thank you for tuning in tonight for the latest news and commentary. Let me go ahead and welcome my guests, Luke Ball, Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Rick Green. Good evening, gentlemen. Glad to have you here. Glad your Texas survived Snowmageddon or snow, whatever it was, Storm Watch 2025. We made it, so we're glad for the 50s, the 40s and the 50s to come back here today. Let me show you, let's get right into the news. Of course, the biggest news of the hour is what's happening in California with the fires. Let's check in with the 700 Club for their latest update. Watch.
Firefighters in Southern California bracing for conditions to worsen with the return of powerful Santa Ana winds, with gusts up to 70 miles per hour expected today. High winds and flames have already left some of the most expensive neighborhoods in the world looking like a nuclear blast zone. Evacuation orders remain in place for areas devastated by the fires, frustrating many residents anxious to see if anything is left of their homes.
Have you seen the house?
No, they don't let me.
Authorities have suspended police escorts into the hardest hit areas, saying they don't have the resources to meet all the requests. And some neighborhoods are too dangerous to enter.
In driving around some of these areas, they literally look like war zones. It is not safe. We want to get you back into your homes, but we can't allow that until it is safe for you to do so.
There's no power, there's no water, there's broken gas lines, and we have unstable structures.
Governor Gavin Newsom says he will ease building restrictions and permitting requirements to help homeless residents rebuild faster.
It's insanity. Hotels are packed to the gills. Shelters are packed to the gills.
CBN's Operation Blessing is working with the Dream Center and LA's Cathedral Church, serving hundreds of meals and supplying water, relief kits, N95 masks, and solar lamps.
So many great things. This is a horrible fire, horrible devastation, but I love it when you see the church start to come together, and you guys are doing it in a big way. With me now is Sean Foyt. Sean, welcome to the program. You just did a big worship night and more. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, it was just amazing. It feels like God, it keeps setting us up, being in these cities in the midst of trial and tragedy. And we had this date planned on the calendar for, the 11th of January for the last 3 months. And we had no idea that the worst fires in the history of the city were going to break out just days before it happened. Power went off all over, even where I live, and high wind advisories and fires breaking out and pandemonium. But it was so powerful. In the midst of all that, we gathered at Angelus Temple. And, everybody that showed up brought an item of aid and support and food and help. And we ministered to those that had lost everything. We saw the power of God rush in. And I'll tell you something. I have never been more proud of the Church of California. The church is rising up, and it is just such a beautiful thing we're witnessing.
When you tell me about the people, because this was struck, and we're seeing some B-roll of that event. But tell me what you sense from the church coming out and rising up to help.
Yeah, well, I think, LA, it's one of those cities, it carries this vibe. So many people, I don't want to go to LA, the traffic and the crime and the crooked politicians and whatever. And, a lot of people really curse the city, but yet in the midst of this tragedy, guess who were the first people that responded? The church. They responded. Gene, I got a $10,000 fine a day for worshiping God in LA. So, I know about the resistance of this city, but yet in the midst of this trial and tragedy, we're the first responders. We're the ones bringing in food and aid and hope and Jesus. And I'll tell you, the hearts of people are wide open for the gospel, even those that have lost everything.
And that's so good to hear. And I know this is, and I'm starting to pick up, on the internet and people like yourself that are out there doing the work, that there's a real, not just a hunger and a desire, but a real expectation to see revival and let it happen in the West Coast.
Yeah, this is what we've been telling people since 2020. Like, I know that you look at California and you think it's so blue and it's so hard and it's so destructive, and but you know, this is a state of revival. This is the Azusa Street. This is
Right.
Jesus People movement. And, you know, sometimes it takes a tragedy. I guess I don't believe God caused this. You know, I would really strongly push back against Christians that say that this is judgment against California or
Right.
LA.
Agreed.
Listen, we all deserve to be judged. Every city's turned their back on God. But you know what? Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. And sometimes it takes a tragedy of this caliber to have the hearts of people turn to God. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we witnessed this last weekend, was the hearts of so
Right.
many people for Jesus. I mean, people that are rich, affluent, that have everything, and yet they've lost it all, and all they have left is God. And it's going to be remarkable to see what God does in the midst of this.
No, it's true. And we're seeing miracles all the way through. In fact, you posted something this weekend about the crosses in Malibu. Talk us through what we're seeing here about the white crosses.
Yeah, I mean, I just love signs like this. I love it when God makes it very clear and evident. And this is a part of Malibu. I believe the whole hillside was burned and charred, and the only thing left standing was these crosses. So what a prophetic picture of the gospel. What a prophetic picture of hope. You know, we saw the same thing on 9/11 with the buildings, you know, that were left in the shape of a cross. We see the same things across North Carolina, you know, when we were doing hurricane devastation outreach there, the crosses were left. And it just is, it's those little things that in the midst of such devastation, they're just reminders, and they just point to the fact of the eternal truth that God is still with us. He's still here.
That's
He's
right.
not leaving us in the midst, and he's working his way. He's working his will.
Yeah, amen. All right, so Sean, I know there are people out there that want to know how to help. Can they go to your website and find out more information?
Yeah, oh, we would love that. I was able to stroke the Dream Center $30,000 check. I led worship there actually on Sunday. Again, it was just planned for months. I was able to stroke them a $30,000 check from so many folks out there like you, and we want to give them more money. So you're welcome to, if you go to letUsWorship.us, you can donate there, and we'll pass it through to all of the leaders. I'm in probably about 10 text threads with pastors all across California that are mobilizing resources and aid, and we want to do the same. You know, we were there, we had a big event, and all of the musicians, all the worshipers, all the sound guys, everybody did it for free. We're just all in this to see God's love cover that city. So you're welcome to go to letUsWorship.us. You can donate there, you can give, and we're also coming to the inauguration. I know you're probably going to cover that, but we're coming this Sunday
Good.
night. So those on the East Coast, we're excited to see you.
Yeah, good. We'll be there. So I need to find out where you're going to be so we can connect. Thank you, Sean. Thanks for coming on the program tonight.
Right outside of the White House, under a tent next to the World War II monument. You can't
Well,
miss
there you
it.
go. Okay. I'm sure there'll be no traffic or anything. I'll just show up there. Sean, thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
Awesome to be with you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. You know, Pastor Hank, it's great to see when churches rise up and they get involved in this is the church being the church. This is where we see the best of American Christianity come out, when the church is the church.
Well, that's exactly right, Pastor Gene. And one of the things we have to remember is the promise in Isaiah 61, where it said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me," and then it went down to heal the brokenhearted, to comfort those that mourn. And then the part that I like, and I believe this is the promise, it's because what Sean said is so true. The church responds in time of tragedy because God always has a redemptive plan. Isaiah 61 says that out of the ashes, God would bring forth something beautiful. And I really believe that. And then if you keep reading in Isaiah 61, it gives you the promise. And it tells you that when God's involved with His Spirit, is what you're seeing there with the church. Sean, who's leading praise and worship and many efforts of the believers, it says that they'll rebuild the old waste places. And there'll actually be a work of reform and rebuilding, restoration, reset. And so that's what's going to happen to California. And I just want to encourage people to continue to do what they can to be the church, but also let's continue to remember that there is something very evil that is connected to these fires, and we need to continue to pray that it would be exposed. And those that are in power, they need to be held responsible, because this was an absolute disgrace of those in political power, their negligence.
That's absolutely right. In fact, let's break that down a little bit, shall we? Let me start. Let me show you this clip from CBS News, a good graphic on how the Palisades fire actually spread. Watch.
In the newsroom here have put together this incredible animation that shows the timeline of how this fire advanced through the communities of Pacific Palisades and Malibu. Here it is, January 7th at 6:17. It was at 2,900 acres. And then on January 8th, that explosion to 15,000 acres. And then the next day, 17,000 acres as it progressed into the mountains. And then on the 9th, 19,000 acres. And you can see how far it had gotten into Malibu. And then we come to yesterday at 20,000 acres. And you can see 20 and then to 21,000 acres. But you see how far across it spread, and all the way up to the 11th, which is today at 22,660 acres. This is just information from 7:30 a.m. today.
Now, you know, Rick, let me start with you. I mean, there's the whole political side of this, and I want to break it down, but I want to get your overview first. When you've been watching what's happening this weekend with the fires, tell me, where do you see the failure?
Well, first of all, it's a balance right now for us in the church, right? Because we have to call those who are accountable to the carpet on this, and there has to be accountability, and it's an opportunity to do that, right? There's usually a catalyst tragedy moment that finally wakes up people to realize they've been living in dream world, thinking that in L.A., you know, that everything's kind of, you know, Disneyland, if you will, when in fact they've had horrible leadership that has set them up for this failure. Now, a tragedy like this happens often. Fires, hurricanes, those kind of things happen. But it's 10x the damage and the you know, horrific cost of this thing, both in lives and property and all of those things, because of the bad management. And so those things have to be called out. But at the same time, you have to meet the need that's right in front of you. And so we're not necessarily yelling at the politicians while we're trying to feed the people that need food, but somehow you got to find that balance. I think one of the guys that does that best is Jack Hibbs at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. I just got off the phone with him right before we went live. He's been on the ground all day there. But yesterday in his sermon, he did just like Hank just did, and he called out the people in charge that had made the mistakes, but then he went out there and met the needs, just like people in the Flashpoint Army are constantly doing. So I think the church has a chance to shine here by doing both, right? Being the light into the darkness, and at the same time meeting those needs that are out there. And for all those people outside of California, I think Sean touched on this really well, that are thinking, and there's part of me is kind of like this, I'm not helping them, they were made these mistakes. No, wait, here's the way to look at this. Jonah didn't want to go to Nineveh either.
That's right.
I'd much rather be at Nineveh spreading the gospel than in the belly of the whale. And so let's make sure we're helping those, even the ones we think don't deserve it. Just like Sean said, none of us deserve it. We're all wretched. Let's meet those in need. Let's see revival in California as a result of this. I think it is going to wake up a lot of people. We're going to see some beautiful things happen here, just like we saw in North Carolina, right, Gene? We saw the same thing happen. The church just absolutely shined in North Carolina. People like Steve Maxwell got truckload after truckload after truckload to the churches. They were the ones not just praying and singing and doing those things, delivering the food, going and cutting down the trees and helping the people. The real hands and feet of Jesus, that's happening in California now, just like in North Carolina.
I love it. I love it. All right, but since you mentioned it, I want to go ahead and play this clip. We were going to play it anyway. This is Pastor Jack Hibbs. Now, remember, Jack is a pastor in California, not Texas, not Florida. Watch what he said Sunday. It's 3 minutes. It's good. Watch.
Nobody can hide from this. Nobody can hide from it. There's no excuses. This is the most wealthiest state in the 50. We pay the most in taxes. We pay the most in gas. We pay the most in electricity. You name it. If it's in California, we pay the most for it. Why? Why? Because of our government. Why? Because of things that Sacramento does because they can. Our flag of this state is an absolute abject lie. The flag says California Republic. It is not. A republic is where the people decide and the people have their way. What has happened to California? And you prove me wrong. I challenge you today, if you don't like what I'm about to say. California has been under unmitigated Democrat 100% power control. Democrat, supermajority. What does that mean, supermajority? It means nobody can oppose their decision making. And now you've got it. You've got a situation where a catastrophe came and the billions of dollars that you and I gave was diverted to other woke, stupid Democrat projects. That's not hyperbole, it is a fact. You don't like it, change your party. If you don't like it, change different. But I'm telling you right now, I'm upset and I'm angry, and it's the right kind of anger. I'm telling you this right now. When you open up a fire hydrant and nothing comes out, and then Joe Biden says, it's because we need electricity. It was turned off for the fire hydrant to turn on. In some cases, that might be true. If the fire hydrants are on top of a mountain, you need a motor to drive the water up. That's extremely rare, and it wasn't the case in these fires. Bad management, horrific politicians who took your money and took trips like Karen Bass, the mayor of LA. She decided to go to Africa the week of the fires to be on a little trip that you paid for. She was really put out when she was told to come home. It didn't look bad. I mean, it didn't look good, that it looked very bad. You've got Gavin Newsom flying down here and then at a command center laughing it up with some people, and it's caught on tape, while he spends 9 point so many millions of probably your dollars to buy himself a new house. It's time to replace the leadership in California. You don't need any more examples. These fires could have been stopped.
The fires could have been stopped, Luke. I mean, I'm loving this, listening to Jack, pastor in California, shucking the corn, man. He's telling it like it is. What do you think, Luke?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with what Rick, what Hank, and the others were saying, that we have to pray for those who are involved in this situation. But after a certain point, we also need to figure out who is in charge over there, who is responsible for making sure that those people are taken care of, and also who is responsible for making sure this never, ever happens again. I was debating a Democrat today on television, and they were saying that we shouldn't be pointing fingers, and I submitted that we must point fingers and say, you need to do your job right now in this very moment. And so Gavin Newsom is going on more podcast and television interviews right now than most political candidates do in their entire campaign. So he has started this political conversation. So let's complete it for him. A few things to note. In fiscal year 2025, for this upcoming year, and in 2024, Gavin Newsom slashed $100 million in fire prevention funds from the California budget. It mirrored exactly what he did in 2020 when he slashed $150 million of fire prevention funds from the budget. And then in that same year leading into 2021, misled all of California, and this was pointed out by NPR, saying that he had made a way to treat 75,000 acres in California and made sure they were treated for fire prevention. And that was not true. It was more like 12,000. So he has a pattern of lying. And the other element to this is that he's saying no reservoirs were not filled up with water, and then they had an NBC reporter correct him on air and say, actually, there was a reservoir, a major reservoir that was not filled up with water. And he said, oh, we're going to launch an investigation into that. The fact is, you can have tons of reservoirs filled up with water, but if the infrastructure is not in place to ship that water or get that water to the point of contact at the hydrants, it does no good. So there was a leadership failure from the top to the bottom. So now that we've identified the political issue there, I'll take a step back real quick and say I was reading in Genesis yesterday, and God is talking to Abram about Sodom, and Abram's having this conversation with God back and forth. It's like, what if there's 50 righteous people? What if there's 40 righteous people and 30? You might think that California has some really whack politics, and it does. But think of the people, not just those who are righteous and godly, but also those who are unsaved and those who are lost. We as Christians have to meet them at that moment, regardless of their politics, and show them the hands and feet of Jesus.
Amen and amen. Good word, Luke. I just want to know, did you wear that sweatshirt when you were debating the Democrat earlier today?
Yeah, it's on a few wanted posters down at the post office, so I've sent them your address. They might be showing up.
Okay, no problem. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about this empty reservoir. Yeah, empty. Can you believe it? Watch.
This was supposed to be the water to put out the Palisades fire. This is the Santa Ynez Reservoir. It's the water supply basically for the Palisades. When they first started fighting the Palisades fire, they ran out of water extremely quickly. Wednesday, 3 a.m., they were basically out. And there's been a lot of talk on why this happened. So how long has this reservoir been empty for?
Since February of last year. There was no communication from the Department of Water and Power to LAFD that there was a water supply issue.
The firefighters, when they started fighting the fires, no one informed them that the reservoir was empty.
This reservoir holds 117 million gallons of water. The fire department was using a water supply from 3 backup tanks, each one only holding 1 million gallons of water.
They say it's closed for maintenance to repair the lid that's on top of it. I don't know a lot about reservoir maintenance, but there's literally no construction materials or vehicles anywhere in sight. Also, with a reservoir like this, you can refill it or start to refill it. So another question is, if they saw the Santa Ana winds were coming and we have this remarkably dry wet season, why was there no attempt to start refilling it back up? I know I threw a lot out there, but I think we need some answers, guys.
We do need some answers. We need a lot of answers, but Rick, I heard today that records go back to 1883 on the Santa Ana winds and how they come down every year. I used to live in Southern California. We knew they were coming. You knew almost the week. So this is not a surprise. Yet an empty reservoir? Come on, this is crazy.
Yeah, Gene, I mean, it's like anything else. We live in a fallen world. It's not that, bad leadership caused the initial problem. It's that they knew it was coming. We know every year these things happen in California. It was that bad leadership caused the problem to be 10 times worse than it would have been. And Gene, listen, I've been trying to catch up on all the people that are involved in this thing. If I understand it right, the lady that was hired to handle this whole water reservoir situation is getting paid $750,000 a year. Now, if that's right, if I read that right, I don't think anybody in government ought to be getting paid that much in the first place. It's supposed to be public service, not public enrichment, but we, of course, know how that's been working. Anyway, just imagine, I mean, they talked about, this mayor and all these others. We have to pay that much to get good quality talent. Well, look at the talent you got and look at the result that you got. I mean, this is so bad. I think what Jack said from the pulpit's 100% right. It's time for the leadership to change, and what an opportunity for that to happen. Last thing I'll say is Sean said, I think the way he put it was, hearts turn to God during a situation like this. I think that's absolutely true. I think it's a great opportunity for evangelism. But I think something else is true. The church turns back to the community to serve them in situations like this. And we talk about it on the program all the time. People have this warped view of separation of church and state, and they think the church should not be involved in all these areas. This is a great opportunity to shift our mindset to recognize, no, the church is supposed to be the epicenter of the community, involved in every area of the community, and it should be the place that people are going to and saying, we need help. We need help over here. Could you have some men in your church that can come help rebuild this? Do you have some ladies that can come do this? That's what the church should be doing. And so what an opportunity for that mind shift. Just like what happened in North Carolina, it's happening now in California.
Well, and exactly. And we look back at North Carolina, what happened in Western North Carolina, and they're still digging out of that disaster and the flooding. Yep. The government couldn't get one house built. Yet the Amish get together and build 14 houses in 48 hours. Pastor Hank, that's right. This is the idea that we have somehow in the American church have forgotten. We've taken our hands off the wheel, and we have depended on government because we are paying them a lot of money, so surely they can help. Right. It's not working.
But but to your point, depending upon government, what did we see for the last 4 years? A socialistic Marxist agenda, where that's what Marxism, socialism wants. They want you to depend upon them, and they control everything. And if that means destroying you, they do it. Because don't forget, these same people out in California, and I am outraged, they were the same ones that promoted DEI. Now you got DIE. People are dead. And there are those that lost their homes, okay? There was also open borders. Let anybody in while they turned the other way. They were showing compassion towards the pride flag and countless things while they were ignoring the fact that they had a real issue. They were vulnerable. They had fires. They had plenty of rain, but they didn't do anything to store it up. This seems very purposeful, and God in his justice is going to expose it. And don't think, guys, those of you that are watching, you have this thing in New Orleans, and all of a sudden, Las Vegas. And now suddenly these fires in California, and we are supposed to stick our head in the sand and think that somebody and those who hate this country somehow are not involved. And here's the thing. I felt it when Jack Hibbs was talking, Pastor Jack, that some on this program were starting to get a little offended. Well, maybe a pastor shouldn't talk that way. If we have to understand, the spirit of Elijah, Jesus said, rested upon John the Baptist. Some thought that the spirit of Elijah was on Jesus. They even thought he was Elijah. But the promise in Malachi 4 is that the spirit of Elijah would come in the last days, or the earth would be smitten with a curse. And I want to say this because when Elijah showed up and when John the Baptist began to proclaim, guess what he said? He said, look, I'm going to come and there's going to be one who's going to bring the crooked places, make them straight. They need that in California. The rough places made smooth. But then he goes on and he confronts the people that were guilty. And he said, you brood of vipers, you snakes. And that's what I want to say to the incompetent mayor who is over in Africa, a governor who absolutely had his head in the sand that needs to resign immediately, and the fire chief who was more concerned about her agenda than the people that they represent and fight for. And I'm telling you, if there is ever a time, Proverbs 29, verse 2, when the wicked rule, the people groan and mourn. That's what we're seeing.
That's right.
But then when the righteous rule, they rejoice. We can't get to January 20 soon enough, but let me say this. We cannot be messing around regarding Trump's cabinet. There are people that have lost everything. Stop the politics. It's time for compassion. The second thing is, I want to see the Congress or whoever is in control to call in the incompetent leaders of California immediately. And they need to be brought forth and investigated. And lastly, I know I'm on a rant, Gene, but I want to say this. I usually don't go this long, but I am, because I feel the justice of God. Listen, the taxpayers are ultimately the ones that are going to have to pay. And they're going to have to somehow rebuild California. That's America. We get it. But with that tax dollar that's going to be connected to the American people, needs to be some kind of harsh accountability going forward, that this never happens again in the United States of America, this level of incompetence and neglect, that people have lost everything.
I agree. And you know, as you were talking, I was thinking of another pastor many years ago, that we love to talk about the Black Robe Regiment, Rick, but Pastor Muhlenberg, I wonder if he had any people in his congregation that were probably like, hey, let's don't overreact. Let's don't overreact. When we know his brother thought he was overreacting until they burned his church down.
That's right.
You know, this is what we're seeing. It's history's repeating itself. We need leadership. Yeah. And people will find, and I believe the encouraging thing here is we're seeing this. It's all coming out. That's what's different about the American people right now. Yes, we're close to this inauguration, but the American people are fed up with what they've been seeing in the marketplace, what they've been seeing in their politics, and they want answers, and they don't want people that have an agenda that are so obvious, like what we're seeing coming out of California. Your final thoughts, Rick, before the break.
Yeah, and Gene, the reason I said that earlier about the church turning its heart back to the city is because we just do a better job in the church in dealing with all of these things. It's always, personal help to the poor or those that have been damaged that does way better than government trying to do it, these nameless, faceless bureaucrats trying to solve the problems of the community. So last thing I would say is just everything that Hank was saying and Luke was saying is right on target for the bigger picture of the proper role of government and the proper role of the church. And Davy Crockett had a great example of this back when he was in Congress. He called it's not yours to give. And it was in a fire situation in Georgetown, right outside of D.C., where they passed a bill to take care of these people that had lost their homes and businesses. And when he got back home to Tennessee, a constituent came to him and said, or he actually went to the constituent asking for his vote, and he said, I can't vote for you because you gave money that wasn't yours to give to take care of that situation. I should have been able to give that money direct because the money would be handled better. I would manage. I would hold them responsible better. So just that mindset changed Davy Crockett's mind on the proper role of government when you're dealing with tragedies. And maybe we need to have more of a national conversation on this, because Joe Biden's already saying we're going to pay for everything. We're going to make sure that the federal government takes care of everything for California. Well, it's not his to give. That means he's telling Texans and Arkansans and people in Michigan and everything else, you're going to send billions of dollars to California. Well, Joe Biden, it's not yours to give. You did that in COVID. You bailed out California, New York, and all their bad policies. So I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but that's just a major conversation that needs to happen. Government does not do these things well. The private market, the church, the individual does it so much better.
But we have to stand up and we have to rise up. Like you said, we have to go do it. And that's what we're going to see, and I believe we're seeing that. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Chris Cuomo. And I'm excited for you to see it. Don't go away. Be right back after this.
It's breathtaking. A tsunami of darkness threatens to wash away all we hold dear if we don't act now. In Killing America, Turning the Tide on the Tsunami of Darkness, Gene and Terry Bailey bring hope, help, and chart a course that leads to America's restoration and renewal. Don't wait. Get your copy at killingamericabook.com and counter the tsunami of darkness with a deluge of everlasting light.
Flashpoint, the point at which something or someone bursts suddenly into action. Some things happen by chance, and some things happen because we make them happen. Are you ready to make a wave across this nation? Will you step up to ignite the change America needs? Will you become a combustion agent in the Flashpoint Army? Together, we can cause a combustive reaction across America, igniting the hearts and minds of patriots who've had enough. The line has been drawn. It's time to pick sides. Victory is at hand. Don't miss an event. Don't miss a single program. We're taking back America. Stay informed, stay in faith, and stay ready, because it's time for the next level of Flashpoint. Welcome back, and yes, it's time for the next level of Flashpoint, and that's coming up right now. And in Omaha, January 30th and 31st. I want to see you there at Lord of Hosts Church. Pastor Hank and Brenda Kuhneman, got to get the N's before the M's, are welcoming us there in Omaha. Speakers include Pastor Hank, Tony Suarez will be there, Lance Wallnau, Rick Green, I'll be there, maybe some others, who knows. I want to see you there. Pastor Hank, I know this was your idea. You wanted to celebrate.
Yes. Yes, and it's Pastor Hank Kuhneman. Thank you.
Kuhneman.
Yes, because
Cinnamon.
Yes. Okay. Listen, I felt very strong that we had a great victory. All right, Rick, knock it off. We had a great victory, and God deserves to be honored and to be thanked. And the people, they deserve a right to gather together and celebrate together and also to honor God together. And I felt like if we didn't do that, then somehow I think it would be a dishonor to the Lord. The other thing is, I feel like there's people that have been through some battle wounds, and we're going to personally minister to them,
That's
you and
right.
I, on Friday night. And listen, I believe that the Spirit of the Lord is going to come in there, and people are going to be reset for something powerful. And don't forget, part of rebuilding in Nehemiah was also you have to continue to fight. So we're going to do both. We're going to teach people how to keep building, but how to keep fighting. And lastly, you keep mentioning the weather. Gene, the weather's going to be fine. The weather will be perfect. You watch. We're going to have warm weather. Now, maybe, 35 degrees, but that's warm. That's warm for this time of year. It's going to be beautiful.
Well,
it's going to be terrific.
My point in mentioning the weather is that Omaha and Nebraska knows how to handle the snow.
Yeah.
Unlike Texas, it shuts down, with an inch and a half.
Yeah.
You guys know how to handle the snow. So no reason to not come be a part.
It's perfect.
I want to see you there. It's absolutely free. We just love to have you. Go to Next Level, fpnextlevel.com, and just let us know you're coming. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing our first meeting of this year. We'll be telling you about more meetings coming up. But I want to see you there in Omaha. All right. Let's talk about Chris Cuomo on News Nations. Now, this is encouraging. This is one of the most encouraging videos you will see because the questions, well, they're real.
However, it can also be seen that you don't want to talk about the politics because it's on your party, because the mayor and the governor are Democrats who arguably should have had the people in Altadena better prepared for this. They should have the resources more available so they don't need me to put them up because the state has been doing the work. And that if they've been preparing the situations for wildfires like they were made aware of, instead of cutting deals with PG&E and insurance companies, they would have prepared the state. That is not unfair criticism. Is it too soon? Maybe, but the questions are real.
The questions are real. Luke, have you ever seen Maxine Waters not talk?
She looked a little droopy. I'm a little concerned about her, but no, I've not seen her not talk. Usually she's fiery, but I think she understands this is a major indictment of her state's politics. Look, when we're talking about representative government, this is not the model for it. California has failed abysmally in that, and you've seen people flee from the state. The only companies that seem to be doing well in that state are the U-Haul moving van companies that are situated around California. A lot of them are moving to Texas. A lot of them are moving to Florida. They're moving to a whole bunch of different other states. And so I hope that somebody in the government wakes up over there. I hope that the people who remain there make their voices heard. I was having a conversation a little earlier today, and I was talking to some folks on the radio show that I have, and I said, you know what? The criticism of Christians in America and in politics today is that we could be the most powerful voting bloc in the country. All of these topics that we're talking about, all of the discussion points that are to be had on a political basis, we could make a bigger and better impact if we all just showed up to vote. All of those who identify as evangelicals, we could sweep the nation with the sorts of policies that we want to have. But too many people just don't show up and do that. Too many people don't want to be involved in their politics, even at the local level. And it's so crucial. We're talking about all of the stuff happening in our schools right now, about how we're taking faith out of the schools and injecting the woke liberalism and cultural Marxism into that. Run for school board. Find somebody who's going to fight that garbage at the local level, on the school board level. We don't need everybody running for U.S. Senate. We need folks on the local and state levels who are going to make an impact in the politics and make sure this kind of stuff never happens.
That's so true, so true. And the local level is really, the grassroots is where it needs to start. All right, so many more news stories happening. Let's check in with Victory News' Mike Garofalo for an update. Mike?
Gene, with just 1 week to go until Donald Trump's second presidential inauguration, the U.S. Senate has a busy week ahead of it with a number of confirmation hearings scheduled. They begin tomorrow at 9 a.m. with Department of Veterans Affairs nominee, former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Defense Department nominee, former Fox News anchor and military veteran Pete Hegseth is at 9:30. On Wednesday, things get even busier for Senate committees with Homeland Security Department nominee, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem at 9 a.m., Attorney General nominee, former Florida AG Pam Bondi at 9:30, and Transportation Secretary nominee, former Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy is at 10 a.m. Also at 10 a.m., CIA Director nominee and former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe and Secretary of State nominee Florida Senator Marco Rubio, along with Energy Department nominee Fossil Fuel Executive Chris Wright. Donald Trump's nominee to head his Department of Office Management and Budget, that is, after holding the same job in the first Trump administration as Russell Vought. His hearing is at 1 p.m. And on Thursday is a lighter slate with Interior Department nominee, former Governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, who was supposed to have his hearing on Tuesday, but due to Democrats complaining about missing paperwork, that hearing was rescheduled for 10 a.m. Also at 10 a.m., Scott Turner, Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, and Lee Zeldin, the former New York congressman who was the nominee to head the EPA. Scott Bessent, the nominee to head the Treasury Department, has a hearing at 10:30. Three of the more controversial picks, if you will, former Defense Department official Kash Patel at FBI, former Hawaii Congresswoman and Director of National Intelligence nominee Tulsi Gabbard, and Health and Human Services nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr. have yet to be scheduled, Gene.
What a week. All right, so, Mike, what happens after the Senate hearings?
So, Gene, once the hearing is over, the committee members will vote on the nominee before they send the nomination to the full Senate for a vote. Now, if a majority vote is in favor of that nominee, the committee will advise the full Senate to approve that nominee. Now, if the nominee does not secure a majority, the committee can report the nominee unfavorably or send the nomination with no recommendation to the full Senate. Gene?
Mike, of course, you guys will be following that all day tomorrow on Victory News at 5 p.m. Eastern and 12 noon Eastern. Thanks, Mike, for coming in late. I know you got an early morning. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, let's. You see that, Rick? There's a ton of hearings going on. How important? Obviously, the Flashpoint Army is going to pray. They're going to pray. But is there anything else they need to do to help put pressure on these hearings to help get the right thing pushed through?
Yeah, it sounds cliche, Gene, but definitely letting your senators know. Just flood their phones. I mean, one call's not going to make a difference, but 100 can, and 1,000 can, and 10,000 certainly can. So flood their phones and say, we want the Trump agenda to move forward. You don't have to remember who all the nominees are or what they've been nominated to. If you just say, in general, we want Trump's nominees through, and we want them through fast so that he can get to work. I'm actually surprised that this much is happening this fast. We mentioned this before. Let's make them play whack-a-mole like we had to do in 2009 when the Obama administration was doing stuff all over the place, moving that left-wing Marxist agenda forward, and it was tough to play defense. We need to be doing the same thing, and clearly the Trump team is doing exactly that. That's why I think you've aptly named our new year for Flashpoint. It really is next level. This is, it's one of those deals where new levels mean new devils. So we need to be better prepared for the ground that we're going to be gaining this year. So coming to that live event in Omaha is a big deal. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing there. And Gene, I love that new spot at the break. It was even next level, like this new energy. Clearly you found someone young like Luke Ball to do that because it just had that youthful energy of the next generation. But man, I'm pumped for 2025. I think we're going to have a great time kicking it off at Omaha.
Yeah, I believe that. And there's the Capitol switchboard, 202-224-3121. And Pastor Hank, thank you for another young guy that's allowing us to come to his church, that we're going to see this. But this is the difference. The difference that we're seeing here is that people really do want to help. This is what's been so great about the Flashpoint Army. I mean, people come up to us and say, we're part of the Army. And yes, we do what you tell us to do. And, that's wonderful because when we work together, we get things done. This is the way it should be. Pastor Hank, I am excited about what's going to happen in Omaha, and I think that's just the beginning. It really is going to be next level.
It is. And let me say this, Gene, when I would go out and meet people at the different Flashpoint events, they would always come up to me and say it was those events plus this program that was carrying them through. And then over Thanksgiving, Christmas, I read, when I say thousands of cards of people that were thanking our ministry, thanking Flashpoint. They would reference this show. They would reference those events. And I'm telling you, I'm so thrilled to keep these events going for Flashpoint. And I'm also thrilled to continue to keep this program going because, even though President Trump gets inaugurated, we still have giants in the land, just like Israel did. And we're going to need people, and they're going to need to know how to handle these next season. And Rick said something that was so powerful. I almost messed his name up, Rick Guerrero or whatever. But anyway, the point is, he said, listen, we have in a year and a half or so, I think, or more than that, the midterms.
That's right.
We cannot make mistakes of the past. We've got to know how to be equipped going forward. And I think Omaha is really going to set things in motion for what God's been saying.
I agree. So we want to see you there. All right. Just how prepared, how much, what? Go ahead, Rick. I mean, it's your show. Go ahead.
To Hank's point, it's not, getting Trump elected is not enough. The rot in the culture is still real. So it's kind of like going back to the, in the book of Nehemiah, the walls were still in disarray even after the king said go rebuild. So we, the people, our king, have said go rebuild. We haven't rebuilt yet. All we're doing is crossing over now and going to do the hard work. So Omaha, we're going to be talking about how to do the hard work and getting busy. So sorry to take over the show again.
No, you're not. No, you're not sorry.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, not sorry.
How prepared is President-elect Donald Trump? Watch him on Meet the Press.
I think Donald Trump is at his absolute strongest right at this moment. Look at the fight that we were expecting, the House of Representatives, his pick, Speaker Mike Johnson, wasn't really a fight. Senate Republicans loving him right now. Most of his nominees are on track. You have corporate America bending the knee to Donald Trump. His legal problems seem to be over. This is peak Donald Trump right now.
There was a time, Luke, that this didn't seem to be possible. There was a time in the midst of all those indictments and things just kept going and going negative and negative and negative. Yet here we are. What does that say to you about this administration coming in?
Well, I'll just speak from personal experience, Gene. If you remember after January the 6th in 2021, every talking head on television just about had written off President Trump. Right. They said that there was no way he could return and there was no way he could come back. That's where he thrives, when everyone counts him out. That's his best springboard to try to prove everybody wrong. And I was really grateful because I was brought in with the Trump team about 2021, 2022, when he was doing some operations during the midterms, and I was able to work with him in some capacity all the way through the election. And I saw that this started with a core group of maybe 5 or 6 people that stayed around and hung on, and they worked hard, and they called people, and they got them on board, and they started building up grassroots, and they did everything correctly. It was a small group of individuals, a kitchen cabinet, if you will, that just believed that this could come about one more time. You remember back in the Republican primary where we were having a conversation about who should be the nominee, who was going to be leading, whether or not somebody should bow out or not. Well, Donald Trump was able to come back with a full force after everybody in the party, including some Trump supporters, had counted him out and said there's no way he's going to be able to come back. So if he can overcome that, I guarantee you he can overcome the Swamp 2.0 one more time. He also knows just who not to hire and who to hire. The reason the media can't comprehend why he would appoint some of these folks like Pete Hegseth and some of these other people like RFK Jr. is because they're not beholden to people in the swamp. One of the main criticisms I saw is that they weren't inside the Rolodexes of the lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and nobody knew them at all or had any connection to them. And that's who we want, disruptors in Washington. And I'll end with this. I saw one Politico article that was saying that the property values of people who have lived in Washington, D.C. for decades, they're worried about them plummeting. They thought their investment was solid, but it's going to go down just because of the flood of people who are going to get fired in that town and who are going to get pushed out. And I think we need some new blood in that capital.
Yeah, I think that's funny. So much is going to happen here. It's already happening, and we're still a week away. All right, so this is 60 Minutes clip. Now, speaking of, I'm not calling this person part of the swamp. Okay. Chris Ray, spilling the beans on China. Watch.
China's cyber program is by far and away the world's largest, bigger than that of every major nation combined, and has stolen more of Americans' personal and corporate data than that of every nation, big or small, combined. But even beyond the cyber theft, there's another part of the Chinese cyber threat that I think has not gotten the attention publicly that it, I think, desperately deserves, and that is Chinese government's pre-positioning on American civilian critical infrastructure to lie in wait on those networks, to be in a position to wreak havoc and can inflict real-world harm at a time and place of their choosing.
The Chinese have already insinuated malware into critical American infrastructure.
That's correct.
Like what?
Things like water treatment plants. We're talking about transportation systems. We're talking about targeting of our energy sector, the electric grid, natural gas pipelines.
You know, Rick, it seems to me like you were in there. Why didn't you do something? You know, what's the problem? Now, oh, by the way, you got all these problems. See ya, we're out. You know.
Yeah. Well,
Rick, help me make sense.
Hey, he's a busy guy. He's too busy going after all these grandmas and pro-life activists and, you know, J6 defendants and patriots and people that love America. He's too busy prosecuting them and using our resources to harass them and destroy their lives. Too busy doing that to actually keep his eye on the ball of the real enemies of America, like the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if he had done this interview, you know, I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe? What a joke. I mean, I'm so glad this guy is gone. He's going out because he had his focus totally in the wrong place and, you know, did so much damage to this agency and to its, you know, the trust of the American people in our agency. So, you know, next Tuesday cannot get here fast enough. And the replacement of not only Ray at FBI, but so many other of these agency heads, it's going to take some time. I mean, we're back to rebuilding. The rot in the FBI, the rot in the DOJ, the rot in all of these agencies is real, just like it is in our education system across America. So I think Luke is exactly right. Donald Trump is going in there.
Yeah.
Maybe another way of even saying it is with a totally different focus than he would have had he won in 2020. He knows the rot is real.
That's
and
right.
Like Luke said, he knows who to bring with him. And I almost feel like it's the Wyatt Earp moment in Tombstone, and he's Kurt Russell, and he's bringing some things with him for this particular battle. Let's just say.
Yeah, he definitely is. All right, this is the last clip I want to play, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. But I want you to see Mark Zuckerberg. You know him from Flashpoint, now Meta. It's a different Zuckerberg now. He's presenting himself in a different way. Pressure from the Biden administration. Watch this.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you know, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know, then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal. You know him on Flashpoint because he's the one that stopped us. We lost so many viewers, so many people on Flashpoint because of what he did with Facebook. It's just a little bit too late. Pastor Hank, he's trying to, he says, they're wanting me to do this. And I said, no. I said, but he did do that. And he did give that. And he did spend $400 million to help the Democrat Party. He did do all this. You trust him?
Well, I just feel so bad for him. I mean, he comes off like one of those California Valley girls. We were so persecuted, like, for sure. Dude, grow up. Be a man. Take responsibility. You also had funny money of Soros or who knows what funding you, helping to manipulate the 2020 election, and anyone who contested it, challenged it, were crying out for voter integrity, you shut them down. And week after week, our ministry was absolutely censored, okay? And we were put in fake book jail for telling the truth of things that have come out that were true all along. So no, he's got a lot of explaining to do. Part of it is he's scared because he knows that he was guilty of some kind of cover-up. And I think it's all coming out. By the way, it doesn't even look like him anymore. I don't know what maybe he's having a makeover. Who knows? Maybe Trump syndrome does that to you.
This is where you miss Mike Lindell when he called him Zuckerbuck. But all right, we're going to go around the room and wrap up here real quick. Rick, I'll let you go first. Don't take a lot of time. There are others here.
Yeah, listen, it's rare that you have a politician or a leader of industry that's really willing to trailblaze like an Elon Musk. I think with Zuckerberg, with Chris Cuomo, with the gal from the Young Turks, I hope it's genuine. I hope they're actually coming over to our values. But I think for a lot of them, it really is driven by the bucks. It's driven by what the culture is moving towards. So that's still good news because it's because of the grassroots and because the culture is moving our direction. They're just putting their finger to the wind and going the right way. So we used to say, listen, we don't mind flip-flopping as long as you're flopping our direction, and a lot of these folks are flopping our direction, so let's enjoy the moment.
Amen. All right. Luke, I'll let you go next. Go ahead. Wrap it up.
Yeah, I remember when Donald Trump was saying that he might throw Mark Zuckerberg into prison for all the things that he did back in the 2016-2020 election, allegedly. And so I think this is his moment of trying to come and meet President Trump at Mar-a-Lago and say, you know what, maybe I'm a changed man. And I also remember when after the 2021 January 6th, I remember when Meta put out a statement and said that we would consider allowing President Trump to come back on after we constructed custom guidelines for him to make sure that it's within the parameters of what we would allow. And those were arbitrary. They were completely subjective for Donald Trump. That meant that they could have at the last minute, if it was a tight race, if it was close, or they just decided to at the last moment, disallow him from running advertisements on Instagram and on Facebook, which are key platforms. You saw the younger vote turnout because of TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff. They could have completely defanged that if they wanted to with that arbitrary guideline. So I think that now he's come back and seen that this is an opportunity for him to try to get in good with President Trump because, look, President Trump's a very forgiving man, and I hope that we all watch and make sure that they actually do keep their promises on this one.
Yeah, I agree. We need to see that. So let them apologize. And yes, there will be people that are doing that to ride the wave. So Pastor Hank, you got a minute to wrap up here. Go ahead.
Well, I think what we're seeing right now is we're seeing what's being played out. It's God's turn now. What does that mean? God's been saying, let me get involved. And when I do, I'll do something that's part of your benefits. Psalm 103, verse 6. When we are oppressed, he brings righteousness and justice. America's being saved, and the God of justice is coming forth. And we're going to see great resets and divine reversals, and America shall be made great again.
Yeah, Jason said in my ear, a lot of flop flip. Remember that? And the dominoes are falling. We've got the feathers are falling. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen a miracle happen right here in America, and we're going to continue to see things increase and get better. Why? Because I have faith in God. Yes, faith in God, but I also have faith in you. I've seen what you guys can do and how you can rally together and get some things done. Let's put that switchboard number back up because tomorrow morning you need to hit those people in your area and tell them who you are and what state you are and where you're from and be nice. You don't. No cussing or anything like that. But tell them exactly what you think and exactly what you feel about who you want to see. Like personally, I think everybody out there should go say Pete Hegseth. We should absolutely get Pete Hegseth in there and Kash Patel. I think we're all wanting to see these guys. Aren't you? I know you are. Come on. All right, listen, don't forget what's happening every week right here on Flashpoint and Victory News and all the programming here on Victory Channel. There's so much here for you to learn, to grow in your spiritual walk, and be informed about what's happening in your world, in your nation. And then get your marching orders right here on Flashpoint and what to go do tomorrow. I know you're going to do it. All right, so special thanks to Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Luke Ball, Rick Green, Sean Foyt, and Mike Garofalo, who's run home to get some sleep before tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, tomorrow night, Lance Wallnau, Hank Kuhneman, and Amanda Head. We'll see you tomorrow night.